With 2 weeks to go until the start of the WNBA season, what did Brittney Griner have to say in her first press conference since returning from being wrongfully detained in Russia? And how has the start of the Phoenix Mercury's training camp gone? Jesse Morrison, Phoenix Mercury beat writer at The Next, joins host Natalie Heavren to chat all things Mercury as the countdown to the start of the WNBA season continues.
Ogunbowale for the win!
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball.
Hello and happy Friday. You are locked on to women's basketball. I'm Natalie Heavren, and I'm a features writer and the Atlantic 10 beat reporter for The Next. Thanks for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen every day. And remember, Locked On Women's Basketball is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Today, we'll be chatting all about Brittney Griner's first press conference since returning from being wrongfully detained in Russia, the Phoenix Mercury's training camp so far, and what storylines Jesse has his eyes on 2 weeks before the WNBA season starts. Joining me today is Jesse Morrison, Phoenix Mercury beat writer at The Next. So Jesse, with just 2 weeks until the WNBA season starts, I am so excited to chat all things Mercury. So starting things off, you were at Brittney Griner's first press conference since returning from being wrongfully detained in Russia. Can you take me through that day and what you heard and observed?
Well, it was just wild. It was like nothing I've ever been at before. It was the biggest press conference I've ever been to. That includes the introductory press conference for Matt Ishbia, the Suns and Mercury new owner. And, you know, I cover coaching changes at ASU and things like that. And just Charlie Turner Thorne's retirement press conference. And there's just been nothing with that type of presence there. You know, you had your media outlets like, you know, your CNNs and places, you know, these big national like news outlets were there, which was just kind of crazy to see. And then just overall, like it was just kind of a nice day because it was kind of, I guess, from the team perspective, like a celebration of her being back. And, you know, she was just in a good mood, and it was nice to see that after what she's been through. And it was the first time that we've really seen her exhibit her personality since being back. So it was all still there, like the BG that people, you know, remember. And that was kind of the part that was like really nice to see.
Did she talk about her time and experience in Russia, or was it just, you know, all of the emotions about being back and getting back to basketball?
So, I mean, that's what they kind of tried to have the press conference be about, was more basketball, but it was kind of tough to avoid the fact that she was in Russia. And she did touch on it, especially like she basically said, you know, she's cherishing every day, you know, more than she did before. And especially when she talked about how, like, you know, she would rather do 2-a-days than be in, you know, where she was. So, yeah, I mean, she touched on it and, you know, touched on coming back and just like having a basketball for the first time. And so, yeah, I mean, she didn't talk about like her day-to-day life over there, but like just like how grateful she is that she's here and not there, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, it does. And in your story, which everyone should go read, titled Jovial Griner Ready to Return to the Court, you know, you describe her as jovial. Can you tell me more about that and the humor she displayed during the press conference?
Yeah, like I just mentioned, you know, she was like, you know, I'd rather be doing 2-a-days, or don't quote me on that, but that's basically what she said. And she said, but don't get any ideas, coach, and like pointed over at Vanessa Nygaard, Phoenix's head coach, who was sitting there. And then, you know, when she talked about how she had her when she got back and grabbed a basketball for the first time, how she, like, you know, kind of dunked on Sherelle, her wife, and like joked about that, and how she joked about how she was wearing low top Converse Chuck Taylors, which are like the worst basketball shoes ever. How her ankles like didn't appreciate that. And then the big kicker, the big best joke that she made was obviously when she called Diana Taurasi a fossil. So yeah, I mean, she was in a great mood. There were some times where she got emotional and, there were tears a little bit, but for the most part, it was the BG that, you kind of remember from before Russia, which was great to see.
Before I get to my next question, I just have to ask, did Taurasi respond to the fossil comment at another media availability?
Yeah, the first time that she was talked to the media after that, she talked about it, and she just kind of brushed it off for the most part. Yeah.
And then can you tell me more about the partnership the Mercury, Griner, and Bring Our Families Home recently announced?
So they announced this campaign with Bring Our Families Home. Bring Our Families Home started in 2022. It was started by family members of American hostages and wrongful detainees that are held overseas. It kind of just urges the White House to take, action to bring these detainees home. And the Mercury have just kind of partnered with them. What they said in the release is basically that they've learned a lot about like wrongful detainees through this, and that they decided to have this partnership because they just kind of decided to use their platform and their resources to kind of aid in this. And then they got the mural out, and the mural that they had painted was done by one artist, I believe, entirely. It's on the west side of the Footprint Center, and it's BG in the middle of a bunch of wrongful detainees that are currently wrongfully detained. But the cool thing about it is there's a QR code that will take you to bringourfamilieshome.com, and that's on the mural. You can take the picture of it, I guess, and then go to that. You'll find more out about like the Bring Our Families Home thing. So that was the part that I thought was cool and a nice touch there. Especially, I mean, the mural, there needs to be more Mercury stuff up in general outside of the Footprint Center. And what better way to do that than to, bring awareness to this cause. There's so many more people than BG that are out there, and that are wrongfully detained. Like there were some folks from Bring Our Families Home that were discussing their experiences, and like some of them are way, way worse than what BG's had to go through. Like their family members have been gone for 5 years, not just 10 months. So that was the part that was just it kind of made me emotional, just like hearing their stories. And I think it's a positive thing that, on the big arena in Phoenix, that you can go and scan the code there and find out about this stuff.
And, when you go read Jesse's story about Griner's return to the court, he did include a video of the unveiling. So you'll be able to see that as well when you go back and read that. What have you seen out of Griner so far in training camp?
So I've been to 2 practices so far, and they kind of just let us in at the end when they're just doing shooting drills. So I've just basically seen her taking jump shots, which you can't really gauge much out of that. However, when she went over to talk to us for the first time after the first practice, she just absolutely threw one down, like rattled the rim. And I was like, okay, I think she might still be a pretty good basketball player. We'll see what happens. But I don't expect the year off to really hurt her that much. In my opinion, I think she'll still be a great player. I mean, she's one of the biggest players in the league, like one of the most dominant players in the league. I don't I don't expect it to really hinder her that much. But again, I do think that we should probably lower our expectations just for at least the start of the season, because she did talk about how her stamina, like that's what she's really trying to get back into. So I think that's something that definitely needs to be taken into consideration. But again, the dunk looked like the old BG. That's the best thing that I can take away from actually watching her, because again, like I said, it's a lot of free throws, a lot of jump shots. I don't know what I can take away from that.
What are you most excited to see her do this season?
I think I'm just excited to see her play at all. Like, I think that's it's a simple answer, but like last year she was in Russian prison. Like, that's awful. And now she gets to just like play basketball. And I'm excited to just see her like be happy on the floor and, be in her element. And then I want to see what happens, with her and this kind of some of the new players on the team and how they fit in together. And I also think that her being back is going to really help with Brianna Turner, because when Brianna Turner went without BG, Brianna Turner's offensive game was not where it was. And I think she can kind of open up the floor for Turner. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that just kind of seeing her with the team is going to be fun and interesting to watch.
And coming up next, we'll discuss how training camp is going for the Mercury. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit, or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Thanks for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen every day. So, Jesse, with Griner back with the team, what have her coaches and teammates said about her as training camp has started?
I mean, they've been glowing about her and just her presence and her being back. And Nygaard was quick to say, she's still one of the best players in the world, one of the, most dominant players in the world. So it doesn't seem like it going into training camp and some of the off-season availabilities. Sophie Cunningham was like, let's be patient, give her time, give her grace. But now it's kind of just like, I haven't heard many things like, oh, we need to give her grace and let her, just kind of watch her, make sure she's okay, like, and everything. I think it's more of a she's good, she's there. And then obviously the rookies, Kadi Sissoko and Destiny Harden, just have been talking about just the veterans and BG included in this, and how they're just really good leaders. And yeah, so that's kind of what I've heard from the team and everybody.
And, going off of that, how have the vibes been at training camp so far?
It's been, from what I can tell, it's great. Like, I mean, everybody's just in a really good mood to have BG back. I didn't cover the team last year, but I can only just imagine how much different it is from last year to this year. I think there's also just, and the players and coaches have downplayed it a little bit, just like when you ask what their goals are. But, with BG back and, Diana's older, but she still is arguably the greatest player of all time. I think that there's a little bit more encouragement that they can that they can do things this year. than last year when, obviously losing one of the best players in the world on the court doesn't help the team. So yeah, and I think that a lot of there was some other drama last year with the team, and I think a lot of that has kind of cleared, and I think Nygaard is aware of that and is kind of just learning and moving forward as in a second year. That's kind of what she's alluded to.
And we just published a story about this now yesterday. But how have the new additions, including the new draftees, the new rookies, looked at training camp so far?
Again, we're not allowed to see too much of training camp, but heard great things from multiple people, from Nygaard, from DT, from BG, just about how well Mariah Jefferson is fitting in and what she can bring to the table. And then, the rookies, I didn't, to be completely honest, I didn't expect either of them to make the team. I still don't know if they will. But Diana went off on a little bit of a tangent yesterday and just talked about how much she's been impressed with Kadi Sissoko from USC and what she's been able to do in training camp. So I think you might see one of the two rookies make it, and I'm leaning to Kadi making the team. It would also make sense. I mean, if you read my story today, it would make sense from a salary cap standpoint to keep a couple players that aren't at the, veteran minimum, more at the rookie minimum. That would Mercury are right up against the cap this year. So, the new additions as far as the rookies, I've gotten good praise from the coaching staff and from the players. And then Michaela Onyenwere, she is not back yet as far as I know. She is still overseas or is heading back. She was supposed to be here later in the week. So I haven't heard much about her, but good things coming out of camp on Mariah Jefferson and the two rookies that were drafted, especially Kadi Sissoko.
And just a couple of asking about a couple of updates. Back in March, you wrote about how Shea Petty believes she may be on track to play in the season opener for the Mercury. Have you seen her or gotten an update on her recovery from her torn Achilles?
I have not seen her playing basketball. I have seen her. to make that answer short.
And then, has anyone on the team or coaching staff talked about Skylar Diggins-Smith? I know she announced she was pregnant back in October of last year and is on a protected contract and also on the last year of her contract this year.
Yeah, nobody has mentioned anything as far as on the team or the coaching staff. We've just been told from the team that she's on maternity leave. So I don't know if there's any chance she plays this year. There was a lot there last year as far as her, with Nygaard and DT. And so who knows if she even wants to be here. So yeah, nobody's really brought that up. So yeah, all that we've heard is maternity leave.
And as the countdown to the start of the regular season continues, because she's on maternity leave, that means the Phoenix Mercury can sign a replacement player, correct?
Yes, correct. Yep. But if Petty is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but if Petty is not able to go, then they have to wait a couple games to get that injury replacement or injury exemption. So they might, I believe, start the season with 10 players. That could be an option, because I'm pretty sure they're going to be at 11 this year and not 12, just because of where their cap situation is. So yeah, that's just where they kind of are at the moment.
That sounds familiar to what some other teams have dealt with in the past, but I deflect all CBA and salary cap knowledge to our fabulous Jacob Mox, who somehow knows that forward and back. Coming up next, we'll continue our training camp conversations and talk about what's next for the team. So, Jesse, what are some training camp storylines you've been watching this week?
Again, I'm very interested in the rookies, and if either of the drafted rookies could make the team. I'm interested to see if Sam Thomas is going to be back. She made the team, played the whole year from Arizona last year. Did not see much of the floor when she did. Her numbers were not great. So I'm just interested to see if she's going to be back with the team. And then I'm interested to see who they're going to keep as one of their backup post players. You've got Megan Gustafson, who played for the team last year for the whole season. And I would expect her to make the team. But you've also got Kylie Shook in there, who took a year off for personal reasons, but she's back. So I think that's an interesting one. And then just to kind of see how everyone is gelling. There's a new the lineup's going to be different this year. Mariah Jefferson comes in. I'm interested to see how they're going to use her, what her role is going to be on this team. I think that she'll definitely start and everything, and that'll be interesting. And then I haven't seen her on the court yet, but I am interested to see if Shea Petty can make that season debut on May 19th. I mean, she tore her Achilles or ruptured her Achilles in August. It's quite the turnaround, quite the recovery if she's able to make it. So I'm just going to kind of be keeping my eye out to see if I see her on the floor in the next coming days, next coming weeks.
And aside from, the final roster starting to take shape over the next 2 weeks before games start, what are some other storylines you have your eyes on in those next 2 weeks?
Just, the increase of, just BG getting back. I mean, obviously that's the biggest storyline, and just to kind of see if the vibes still remain the way they are, because it's last year obviously the vibes weren't good. Now the vibes are good, and I just want to see if that will continue on through training camp and then into the regular season.
And then we just had a story go live for you, but are you working on anything else out of Mercury training camp, or will we just have to wait and see?
I have a season preview coming out. I will be working on a Mariah Jefferson feature article that will be coming out next week at some point. So yeah, stay tuned for those two. I got some other possibilities, but I don't want to throw those out there in case I decide to not write those.
You never know what can happen with rosters or things like that. So good move. Definitely excited for those stories. Thank you for joining me today, Jesse. Where can the people find you and your work?
Obviously, you can find me at The Next, and then you can find me on Twitter at MORRSCODE_, so Morse code. As you see my Twitter there, and that's where you can find a lot of my work. I'll always be retweeting or tweeting out my articles there and whatever else I'm working on.
Well, thank you for joining me, and thank you to our listeners for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow on the show, make sure to tune in to hear from Hunter, Em, and Lincoln, our WNBA draft experts, who I always learn so much from.